Red alert! All hands to battle stations!
Get ready to boldly go where Star Trek has never gone before.
Fire!
Paramount Pictures presents your favorite Star Trek movies on DVD in original widescreen format.
Go to Red alert!
With high-resolution video and enhanced digital sound.
We gotta get out of here!
Fascinating.
Coming soon.
Lock and load.
DVD and Star Trek.
Set a course for Earth. Maximum warp.
The future is here.
Here we are, guys. And once again, we always try to have a big roundtable. As you may have noticed from earlier this year, we were more frequent with doing our favorite moments, because I find that it's a better way when inevitably everyone wants to talk about the same topic and they can't all get fitted on the same day or recording time. Instead of just saying it's a one and done or a part 1 through 5 and tiring everyone out, it's always good in my view to do a favorite villains, favorite moments, favorite battle or terror scenes, depending on the genre. And here we are. We have decided, hey, we're going to go through Star Trek, but obviously we can't do it all just because it's a mega franchise. It'd be like, what's your favorite DC or Marvel cartoon or movie? So we decided, hey, to start it off, let's talk about our favorite moments from the submarine and space Latin movies. And with me, we got the trio from Star Trek, the Undiscovered podcast. We got Greg Vorob. Welcome.
How you doing, Cam? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Bain.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk about some Star Trek.
Absolutely. And helmsman Nick.
Hey, guys. Very happy to join you guys, and thank you so much.
Anytime. Also, first timer. We've been back and forth, and this was the first episode we were going to get him on, and it's Caleb Knutson of Caleb Watches Movies on YouTube. Hello.
Hello, Cam. Hello. I'm not wearing my red shirt today. I
was just about to make that reference.
I'm the ensign that accompanies the main cast on an away mission.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just make you chief of security. How about that?
There we go. I like that.
And so this was cool to plan for, and good news out there for the fanboys who were making fan films. They've decided, hey, let's start getting into audio dramas, and you guys are welcome when this podcast here starts venturing into that. You know, we decided we'd come up with one called Fan-Made Conclusions, which would be kind of a fun nod to that. We'll do some original stuff like Assassins and sci-fi horror anthologies. So, but first off, so this was going to be cool because, like, we're an iconic franchise. Like, there's a lot of notable moments. There's a lot of other moments that I've kind of lived on through memes and just kind of hardcore fans. So we're just going to circle around in no particular order. Just.
This is Enterprise calling.
All systems standing by.
Logic dictates the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Since we haven't all seen the same movies, and also just there's really no point in doing it in the order. Like, if that's your moment, like if that's the thing that just comes up when we mention the name, like that's what we're mainly looking for. And I'll let you hit off first. When you even just bring this up in conversation, like what's a moment you think you would even like test out your new HD speakers and TV on? What's a moment where you're just like, that's just so well written, that's so well staged and shot?
The first moment that comes to mind when I think of Star Trek in movies is from probably the worst film, or at least the general consensus would call the worst film, but I can't help but love the delivery of the amazing line that Kirk has to God, where
It's
he
my
raises
favorite.
his hand like a child in school and says, excuse me, what does God need with a starship?
What does God want with the starship? I was actually going to mention that moment. I'm so glad you brought it up. That and Spock's jet boots.
Yes, of course. But that line delivery has always just stuck with me. And how he just raised his hand like a little kid in school. It's one of my favorite lines in all of Star Trek. I love it.
Oh, perfect. Lovely, lovely. That is a captivating one. And a movie is somewhat salvageable. I mean, years before Strange New Worlds tried to make it work better. It's just interesting how that's like the pivotal moment. It makes me wonder if they shot that. That was one of the first scenes they shot.
It's just so conversational. Like, that's how I would want to be if I met the creator at the center of the universe. Yeah. Right. What are you doing? What would you like to drink? Excuse me.
That in the campfire tells perfect. So Greg, when you think of a moment that is like in your top 10, like, or just in general, or you're just like, that's a scene I want in a film study class, what's one that you're just like is instantly in your cerebrum?
The Wrath of Khan reveal, where he takes off that headscarf and you see him. Oh my God. That is the moment where I said, oh, yeah, that's why I love this movie. And of course, I always enjoy the whole thing. But that moment is, I'm not being biased here. When I saw that in an anniversary screening, I think it was the 35th anniversary, and I saw that on the big screen, it was even more profound to me. And to me, that is just as iconic as the Darth Vader reveal.
It is kind of almost like,
yeah.
This was kind of their answer to Empire Strikes Back, but it almost in a way kind of makes me feel like that was their, like, we're going to stage this way differently, way more creepier,
Oh, yeah. And of course, Chekhov, even though everybody knows the continuity issue that's there, and, he says Khan, and
sometime off screen,
the big reveal.
You must have seen him, yeah.
Yeah, of one of the, I've always gone with that fan theory of that Chekhov was in the lower decks at the time. But yeah, that reveal, and then of course the gravitas and presence of such an actor, Ricardo Montalban, and it's that will
Montalban, yeah,
that will be, if anybody says what my favorite moment in any Star Trek film, it would be the Khan reveal.
Stellar, yeah. It doesn't really get talked about enough. Everyone just often goes for the back and forth, pre-Die Hard, yelling over the communication system. And it's just like, but there's other moments, it's fun seeing. I always love just seeing his henchmen who are kind of unsure about if their leader knows what he's doing or if they're going to die, before getting destroyed by Sulu's torpedoes,
Absolutely.
So Nick, you're a big First Contact guy. I'm sure we got some of the same moments. What are some of the moments from that just stand out to you as to why that one has often been a fan favorite and critical favorite?
Well, because being my pretty much only point of reference when it comes to Star Trek, because as I often say to Greg, I just work here, as they say. So I would say one of the key moments to me was the fight on the Enterprise's main deflector dish. Because you have this. Those 7 minutes are literally a mini masterclass in high stakes. Our heroes must deal with setback after setback. They attract the drone's attention. The drones adapt to the phaser fire. Worf successfully slaying of a Borg, punctures his pressure suit. Hawk can't move his maglock before he's thrown overboard, only to return and attack Picard as an assimilated drone himself. It's amazing. And added to that, you have Jerry Goldsmith's music, which gives the events even more impact. Because you have, when me doing my research, you have that 4-note motif, which he wrote for Star Trek V, and it sounds whenever the characters narrowly avoid catastrophe before modulating into a hopeful major key once victory is secure. So I love that moment. Not every aspect of the sequence has aged gracefully, but when Picard flies across the soundstage on admittedly well hidden or digitally erased wires, I did cringe a little, but the battle remains, I think, the tensest set piece piece in many movies that I have seen, the gem of an action sequence for sure.
Nice. It's also kind of criminal how the full score wasn't released for the longest time. And
agreed.
Yeah, so many people, when they were listening to it by itself, they're like, it's a good movie, but it's kind of bland. It's like, well, they didn't give you the best moments. So, but I had no idea that he used some unused stuff from part 5, but that makes sense because he was, about to leave us, unfortunately. But no, very cool. Following that, I mean, that's just a great battle, because one thing the saga does well is each battle matters. And unfortunately, so many other franchises just go AWOL because, like, for instance, look at Lethal Weapon 1. Every moment moves the story forward. Now look at the sequels, like them or hate them. You take out the car chases, nothing matters or changes the flow.
Right.
If anything, it just speeds up the movie. So, it's cool seeing these battles, and they're actually, before the West Wing was doing the walk and talk, they're actually, spitting out, sci-fi exposition while engaging in gunfights. So yeah, it's really good change of pace from the usual cowboys and Indians motif it originally started doing in space. My favorite moment actually has to be from that is the line must be drawn here scene.
The line must be drawn here.
If you were but a man, I would kill you where you stand. Get off my.
And of course, you get assimilate this, which of course is
yeah. And see, anyone else, if they did that, it would just be cheesy, and somehow they stage it so well. And it's just so awesome seeing Patrick Stewart take this as kind of his Die Hard, especially in Insurrection when he's laying bombs to go off and roasting the admiral who's crooked. Yeah, I love those moments because it just makes you wonder, had they continued making them in theaters for a while, how it would have looked then. It's a rarity. Kyle, what are some of your moments from any of the eras of movies?
Yeah, so one of the scenes that keeps coming back to me, and it's just because of the star power that's in the scene, is as Generations is closing out and you have McDowell and Stewart and Shatner in a scene together, just the gravitas and the power present in that scene floors me. To see those three together is just incredible. Now, with that said, my favorite scene actually comes from my least favorite film, In the Final Frontier. Bones has become my favorite character. At least one of them. Data has grown on me very quickly. But Bones I've loved since I started watching Star Trek about a year ago. And the scene with him and Sybok, as Sybok is taking everyone back through these emotional moments in their lives. Nice. And the scene with Bones and his father as he's trying to come to terms with whether or not he's going to pull the plug, ultimately does, and then realizes not that long after he could have saved his father's life. I think that scene is so emotionally powerful in a film that otherwise fails in that regard.
I did hear your roundtable on that, and you guys are actually going deeper into the well instead of just trying to make sense of the scenes that don't work. They're just like, hey.
Yeah. There's something about it, and I think part of the reason it works so well is the juxtaposition of it being good and so much else about the film not being very good. But DeForest Kelley is just wonderful in that scene, and Lawrence Luckinbill is really, really good considering what they did with that character, and he shows what he's capable of in that scene as well.
Yeah, nice, very nice, very nice. See, I had no idea where this was going to go, so this was pretty cool. Why do you think these moments ultimately serve their movies so well? Other than they're just the human moments, would work in anything, whether it was a romantic comedy or regular action adventure. Why do you think overall is just these scenes were so well staged?
I think they're all universal scenes. They're scenes that we have gone through in our lives, like the scene that was just talked about, watching a loved one
die
slowly die, wanting them to stay here, but right. But watching them slowly die, wishing that they were alive, but also wishing that they were dead to just ease the pain. So a lot of Star Trek just has those universal moments that connects with us on a personal level.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I think why Star Trek in general works and what's really pulled me into it is that it's a really intelligent franchise. It does a really good job of reaching out to its viewers and not just being a science fiction action adventure franchise. It's really very, very intellectually done. And even again, in The Final Frontier, a movie that doesn't really hit on that as well, it still has its moments that really pulls you in that regard.
Yeah. Scenes that, if you took away the visuals or the music, they would still work.
That's the thing about Final. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's why from what I have gleaned of Star Trek, I would kind of equate it to Doctor Who in that sense, as in me being a hardcore Whovian and loving Doctor Who as much as I do see some similarities, at least with the way they they do sci-fi, as in they're both sci-fi shows, but there's so much more to it. It's so multi-layered. There's always a message behind it and what have you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's pretty much what Doctor Who does, be it a political message, be it a social message or social commentary, and Star Trek does exactly the same thing. And I think, to even Caleb's point, it's very much a fact of they make it incredibly relatable. I mean, it's not just people, just rushing around and doing crazy stuff that we could only imagine to do. But if you strip it down to its bare bones, they are very familiar situations. And I think that's why it works so well. That's why Doctor Who works so well. And that's why Star Trek works so well.
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah. If I could digress to Star Trek V, Star Trek V, that's one of the frustrating things about Star Trek V is that it has so many indicative Star Trek moments. Kyle and Caleb, both were able to name moments from it. I can name the moment that now that we've all seen Generations, I feel like that was a great planting of the seed when Kirk said, I always knew I'd die alone. And then look what happens in Generations. He did, meaning Spock and Bones weren't with him. Meaning he knew as long as they were there, he would be okay. And so that's one of the things about Star Trek V is that there is a good movie and a good story trapped in that poor executed one that we got.
Trust me. And being a B-movie guy, you're going to notice it with many of these where it's like, it may not deserve the reputation, but I'm waiting for a recut,
Yeah.
And it's just one of those where it's like, there's some fun stuff in here and there. And I mean, they kind of did the same with the final season of Picard, where they pretty much just fixed the stuff in Nemesis that didn't work. So it is one of those where I'm like, I hope they can keep making parts of the franchise that make it flow way better.
Now, we haven't gotten to Nemesis yet. That's next season on our podcast. But
I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, what I do remember, it has to be a rewatch so that I could completely form my my final opinion. But the first time I saw it, I did see it a second time, and then my opinion kind of changed. But the first time I did see it, I did enjoy it, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can find a good moment in even the weakest film, and so that's why I like these moments where it's not called worst moments, it's called favorite or best moments. So how about part 4 when they're in the zoo, so to speak, and they see Spock actually going around swimming, and everyone's just like, how do we respond to this? He's doing his mind meld.
That's the thing about Star Trek 4. It is the most standalone of any of the Star Trek films, and most beloved by non-Trek fans.
It's so hard to believe that the scientist was originally going to be played by Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Star Trek 4 just works so well at every point. The San Francisco antics is one of the moments that I have on my list. I couldn't nail it down. Guys, break up. I'll give you $100. Oh, is that a lot?
Computer on.
Hello, computer. Keyboard, how quaint.
Good stuff. Oh, man. Fun fact, my father actually, back in the day, went to a screening of Part 3, and he remembers when the audience just yelled in unison, I have had enough of you. I think that kind of interactivity is kind of gone. The closest I've seen is probably with one of the first Olympus Has Fallen movies, but that's a different kind of movie. That was more, everyone was there. They were just rooting for the hero.
Yeah, I must say, I don't want to talk negative about any franchise, but Star Wars, there was a lot of franchise fatigue. And so Force Awakens, of course, opening night had the huge cheer that it always does after, that long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Everybody can't breathe. the Star Wars, logo
You do
comes.
see a lot of that,
logo
You do
comes.
see a lot of that, yeah.
Huge applause, whatever. And the same thing happened for Last Jedi because they left us wanting more. And I'm not making this up. The night of Rise of Skywalker, as there was a lot of franchise fatigue by then, you got over Rogue One, which I didn't like, but I respect that people did. Solo, and then so many TV shows by that point, and people not really knowing whether or not, and of course, a lot of people disappointed with The Last Jedi. That Rise of Skywalker, you heard long time ago, Galaxy Far, Far Away. You could hear a pin drop. Literally, when the logos came that night, opening night in the theater, it was literally like one guy in the back went, "Yeah, serious."
I bet the speakers were. If there's anything where they double check, making sure it's good, and it's probably a screening like that. It's like we can't goof it up. No refund.
I don't know. From the special editions to the prequels, I was waiting for it. The person that I was with, I'm sure they'd seen Star Wars in theaters before, but never an opening night. And I looked at them. I said, "Just wait, and it was literally that. It was all right.
Fun. The closest I got was probably with the Kelvin universe of the new Trek movies. I was able to get a few other people to yell with me, "Whoa," when older Spock comes back. I was able to go, That's the closest we got. The rest of the time, everyone was often just laughing at some of the witty humor that version of Bones and Kirk have. It's hard. It's kind of, I don't know. I think people have just gotten ruder, or I don't know. They don't really interact with a movie as much, which sucks, because there used to be kind of a fun factor to that where we're watching this, we're all complete strangers, but we're all having a fun time, and the fun is infectious,
And everybody's on their bloody phone in the theater. You're like,
there's that.
Are you in the theater and you're on your phone? Get out.
I agree. I bloody agree. I do not get.
I mean, I didn't
that's
see.
Just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't see Taylor Swift the Eras tour, but from what I understand, there
not
was
worth your time. Not worth your time.
Yeah. Don't worry. It's like
never gonna see it, but it's all
audience
good.
Participation for sure. I heard.
Beam me out. Anyway,
watched it with my partners, and I was bored to death.
Oh, I'm sorry. What moment do you guys believe you've seen referenced the most, like on lists and just by other fans, that give it away that they've seen the movies 100 times?
Well, Khan, of course.
Yeah, Khan. There's Khan.
Of course,
I think there's "You will always be my friend" or something like that. I will see someone quote Spock's dead.
You are and will always be my friend. I mean, it's a testament to Caleb's favorite moment. How iconic "What Does God Need with a Starship" came in a universally, disliked film of the fandom.
Yeah.
So that speaks to a lot about that quote. Yeah.
On rare occasions, you might see someone do that on a free thought or political forum, and it's just like, see, this is why we like Star Trek. Star Trek influences our real life philosophy. How awesome that someone decided to go there. I've always loved it when South Park tried to explain the definition behind Klingon. So it is always just hysterical how when it gets referenced, you're just like, see, that's just funny. That's awesome.
For me and conversations with my brother, who is the biggest Trekkie that I know, the reason that I'm into Star Trek is because of him. I mean, we quote "douche veg oh no lean" constantly, but that's more of an inside joke with us of just Uhura at the helm, and she has all these books and dictionaries.
She's
and they all join in the universal laugh.
Right. They're trying to make it all work, and they're like, did they buy it?
Douche veg oh no lean.
Oh man. The fire moments whenever they're getting rid of the torpedoes, almost always like it's awesome when people on YouTube would do like compilations of that, and you're like, I don't know who has the best one. There's Kirk, there's Riker, there's Picard, there's Sulu in part 6. Part 6 is interesting because there's some great scenes in both the original and the special edition, and like I gotta hand it to some people. Hate the scene, but I actually like how there's an extended version of Spock figuring out who's the murderer, because it's just shot differently. But in either version of the movie, it is awesome just seeing just Spock and Bones struggling to get to the torpedo bay. It just brings a real old habits kind of die hard kind of thing to it, where it's just like, here we go again. We got another unstoppable enemy, and this time we can't even see where the hell he is. But fortunately, Scotty's got a cloaking sensing gadget in it. And it's just awesome just seeing these aged heroes just trying to just struggle to get there while the ship's being blown apart and they're barely keeping the thing from blowing up in their face.
Which leads to, I think, in my opinion, one of the best fires of the movie franchise. Just Kirk, that dramatic zoom in and him clenching his fist. Fire.
Absolutely. And seeing Chekhov have to punch the button since the other guy's been blown out of his seat.
Right.
Knocked unconscious, probably dead.
6 is just a perfect movie. 6 is just amazing.
On rare occasions, I have unfortunately encountered people who find it boring. I'm like, it's a suspense movie about the Cold War in space. Come on.
It pulled Kyle in. That is the movie that pulled him in.
And surprisingly,
it's the
I
first
introduced
thing I
my parents to that one. Back in the days of VHS, they only knew about like the first four movies. They had no idea about the last 2. And I'm like, come on. Yeah, so for whatever reason, I think because you want to talk franchise fatigue, there kind of was a brief bit of that. People didn't see part 5 because they heard how bad it was, and 6 was a sleeper hit, but not everyone saw it kind of probably until it was like premiered on like CBS, It's interesting how some stuff takes a while for people to catch up with, and it makes you wonder, well, how does anyone keep up with a movie or show now if IMDb doesn't update it on time, or you don't have your own custom episode guide for fans who are going to watch all of it anyway?
It was also confusing at the time too for Star Trek fans because Next Generation had been out for a couple of years.
Yes,
we have a Kling on the bridge.
They
and
figured,
there's
I guess,
peace
they
between
want
humans and Klingons.
They want to
and then here and then here we have this movie coming out, and no, the Klingons and humans are at war. I'm like, well, we've already covered this. I thought we already solved this.
Yeah, totally. If anyone here ever read the 50-Year Journey book? Features a compilation of various interviews with everybody, and it's just awesome how they dive more into how at that point Roddenberry was pretty unrecognizable. He had all that dementia, so the most progressive man in the writer's room is now racist, sexist, and here he is on his deathbed, and he's seeing the first cut of the movie, and he's like, it's awful, I hate it. The next day, oh, it's not bad. It's just like, and then finally is like someone gives him the way off. It's like, it's fine, print it. It's just, oh, good, because we have a movie due in theaters. We've already fought the ratings board because they thought the deathless Klingon senator was too much. It's just, can you imagine in the day and age when that's on film and you're having to redo effects and print it, into a can? It's not the same now where in 48 hours it'll be fine.
There are, it's easy to defend Star Trek 5 in that respect.
Oh no, this was
on the
6.
other. Oh, that was 6. Oh, wow. I can't imagine why Roddenberry.
Well, because he had lost his mind by then. So, but like many people on Next Gen would take their names off it because his lawyer got it in his head. Hey, I want to be a writer too. So that's why those first 2 seasons on some people can't stand because it just isn't quite there yet. But he would make sexist remarks, and you want to talk like instant memory loss. Like he would tell him at lunchtime, that was a great pitch. And then the next day, it sucks, change it. And by the way, you can't kill anybody, even though I've set it up in an unwinnable situation. So totally read the 50-Year Journey. You'll see about a lot of the ailing health problems. And then you have to deal with Rick Berman, who's just looking for sexy cast, but wants to play it, stick to the rules. It's funny, just the compromises we have to make, where it's like, hey, we work together. But that's why I'm pretty much happy that just about all the actors pretty much get along with each other. Yeah, other than the 2 leads on Voyager just deciding to, not hang out after filming is done. It's so rare to see a giant cast with so many talents actually just, they even make an effort to see each other's shows instead of my show was the best and I haven't seen the others,
Everybody from Voyager kissed and made up, though.
Oh, except Janeway and Jerry Ryan. But
from what I understand, even then, yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything personal. They were just. It was more at the time. It felt like writers were trying to write one or the other out, so the cast had to just tell them, "Hey, we like you all. The producers like you all. That rumor needs to die. It needs to get."
It was very
out.
much pitted against. Yeah. It was politics.
Yeah, and it's also you guys were talking about the translations. It is also kind of funny how that factors into it a lot. It just the way they would stylize those subtitles in the various movies. I think I once, as a prank gift, got someone a Klingon dictionary, and it was very much like the Elven language in Lord of the Rings, where you're like, man, someone actually, made this. And James Doohan, of all people, Scotty, was actually the one who decided to pitch in and help out with that. So it's just funny,
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out. Have you guys ever seen how any of the movies look now on streaming or Blu-ray? It's just one of a kind. I'm just so glad they finally gave it that treatment instead of just letting them rot on VHS and DVD or Laserdisc.
Well, Blu-ray, I think they look best on Blu-ray. I think if anybody wants to see I think all of them finally did make it to Blu-ray. Yeah, I think if anybody wanted to get the full collection, from Kirk to Picard to Kelvin.
Yep.
The Blu-rays, the Blu-ray 4Ks are crazy. I don't myself own them, but those are crazy. Streaming's difficult because, Paramount Plus and Max keep switching.
Yeah.
The rights to
they
those
keep licensing. Films. Yeah. It's just like.
And they show different versions, I don't own them all, but I know that, so Paramount Plus could show the special edition director's cut of Khan, whereas Max sometimes does not. I don't know. It really goes back and forth of which one you're going to get on both.
Even AMC, I read, would sometimes reveal, like in a version that the red shirt that dies at the beginning is actually like a nephew of Scotty's, and you're like, geez, why is that not in?
Why is that not in the first place?
It's funny when you see these rare different cuts of movies inexplicably. And if we're going to go with some of the other moments, Nemesis actually does have a good moment when they have to ram a ship, so you got that to look forward to, Nick. Because it's just funny because they do callbacks on it in some of the other shows where it's like, don't let Troy pilot the ship this time, it's just no, don't do it. And if anything, Man, if we're going to talk a few other moments about Part 3, I love how they stage both when Kirk and his crew steal back his ship from Starfleet. Sulu is having and Spock are having to knock some guys out, and I just love how they're both like, "The ship is beautiful, and by the way, we gotta warp before our superiors, threaten to kill us." And just the way they stage that court martial at the end is also pretty fun. It's like, yeah, actually that's in Part 4, but my bad.
They gave Sulu something to do there. That's Sulu at his best. 3 and 6. You want to see good Sulu moments, anybody?
And then the Admiral.
Check out 3. Yeah. Check out 6.
Fly her apart, then.
Yes.
I will also give some love to the Calvin universe. I know a lot of people feel that they,
but I get it.
I feel that they, or at least a lot of people feel that they have, Star Wars up Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But before the 2009 Star Trek movie, I've been saying for a long time, Star Trek needs a hard reboot because they keep coming out with shows and it just feels like rinse and repeat. Enterprise came out, it just felt like the same thing to me. And then
I've always said that because it's like they always have a kick-ass pilot, and then people talk shit the first few years, and then finally people's rewatch them years later and saying, "Oh, it's not as bad as I remember," or "I actually like it." Where was I? It's just
right.
I think everyone finds everything repetitious now. It's just like repetitive. That's the right word. But yeah, I'm coming up with my own Klingon language. But
Enterprise, though, I will stand by that season 3, the Xindi saga of Enterprise, is some of the best, most original sci-fi, and if even separate of the entire franchise, because they set out to make it very different. They set out to, this is still a Star Trek prequel, yes, but it's not going to be every episode. Okay, what leads up to Star Trek? They took that Xindi side, and I just stand by that it is. Anybody should see it, and it is just really fine sci-fi in general.
Rest in peace, showrunner Manny Koto, who we lost a year ago.
Yeah.
I loved how he said, they're not, he was just the supporting writer that 3rd season, and then took over for season 4, and he finally told them, "We got to make it serialized. You want the ratings up, you want the show to get better, let us serialize the shit out of it." And I loved how he's like, their go-to for those seasons was Crimson Tide. Make there be a mutiny every other episode, make there be, kind of like what the new Battlestar was doing, just let's get inside the captain's mind and what he stands for, just put to the test.
Well, first of all, they gave it that theme song that nobody liked. I don't think people should have. I don't think people should have not watched the show because of it, but they did. They didn't. And, by the time season 4 came along, by the time even the ratings were dropping, and it's, it was hurt by its own, I guess you could say PR, or it was just hurt because it was a great show with a great cast, but UPN heard it. And, I will stand by. It ranks above Voyager for me, actually.
Absolutely. I was so hesitant when going through them all, but I had that one on the rewatch pile first, and I was like, "See, this is so much better than when I remember it, live pre-DVR, and kind of hate watching it." And it's like, if it wasn't related to Trek, I probably wouldn't watch it at all. So it is, and it's just so funny. Yeah, by 2005, everyone was kind of just like, just go back to rewatching. It was so hard to find Deep Space Nine because it was often at like 2 a.m. on like TV1, and Voyager was often on Spike, and same kind of deal. It's like, I like these characters, but I hate those plots they're setting outside the Borg episodes. And OS, same kind of deal. It's like, some episodes are awesome, some are outdated. Let's go back to watching the classic movies. And Next Gen, I would just put on any day of the week. It was always just such good dialogue, acting, effects, and suspenseful music. So it's just interesting how going through them all again is like, some of the episodes you remember is like, you actually like better now. Some of them that you hated then still don't care for, and then others you're like, man, this plays so much better now. It's funny what stuff just evolves. And
Caleb made a great point, though. It brought the franchise back, And even if someone doesn't like, I happen to love '09. I think '09 is a fantastic film.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
wonderful.
it's fine. It's just I think everyone gets distracted by the Death Star villains. It's just like, okay, but at least it made this generation check out the early movies, and
absolutely
it was popcorn.
Right. But and that first 10 minutes of the Kelvin sacrificing, I mean, it gets me every time. I always get tears in my eyes hearing, just seeing Kirk Sr. sacrifice himself and not just hearing his son cry for the first time.
Oh, nice.
It's like, that gets me. That gets me so hard.
I'll give the moment when younger alternate timeline Spock is in that vehicle. Like, to Nick's point, that's kind of a Doctor Who moment where he's just blast that Inferno and finally repeating some of Kirk's jokes just to get a grin out of him. He's acknowledging how he's like, hey, I'm half human too. You win. Mm-hmm. And I know this movie gets a lot of hate. I'm actually gonna give some applause to when Khan goes into darkness. The movie there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work in it, but I do love how he's actually really commanding in that role. I think it's just a testament how what a good actor Cumberbatch is, but I just love how, say what you want about the reveal. It's just awesome just seeing him kind of take over two different ships and being like, you still need me, I can't die in space. You can. And I can crush your head because I got Superman type strength. We can't not talk about movie 4 when they're first beaming up the wells. That's just an awesome segment, and kudos to whoever does the Foley. Like, you feel like you're actually surrounded by all the water that the actors are surrounded by on the soundstage.
Well, and then we also get clarification that Kirk is not from space. He only works in space. He's from Iowa.
Yeah. So it's just so cool just seeing him revealed to the only scientist who he's had some relationship with, saying like, I don't even know how to explain this. These two wells, they disappeared. I'm okay with the paperwork. I got to meet just awesome people who actually want to save the universe. And it's just so rare that you can do something like this. If you did it now, it would either be well-intended but preachy or just boring, so it's just so awesome that this is I think the reason it has just stood the test of time is just, it gets in, it gets out. The people who are here for the adventure love it. The people who are here for the comedy love it. The people who are here for the positive drama dig it. It's just, it keeps it afloat. Pun intended. I think it's just a testament to the franchise because, kudos to producer Harv Bennett, who, much like many of those other writers, had made a career creating different Westerns and adventure shows, and he just had a sense of what that saga could do. It is actually funny seeing him cameo as the Admiral they talked to in part 5. Everyone got their ego stroked there.
Right.
It's a tough thing. Yeah, it's a tough thing when they get a new showrunner, so to speak, when the person who started it all is yet still there on set or has, but limited capacity. I mean, I can't imagine, say what you will about Gene Roddenberry. I can't imagine what that might have been like for him. That's like, we're giving the movies to this guy. You are a creative consultant. That's it. Creative consultant. That's what you are,
Yeah. Basically, I mean, you've seen it with Harlan Ellison on the City on the Edge of Tomorrow. A lot of them were kind of that same place where they were like, hey, glad to be part of the family, the collective, pun intended, but that's not really my script, but see, I would be just honored to have submitted a script. There was a B-movie guy who's done a few giant cyborg movies. He sold an episode to Next Gen, and those became some of the Ensign Row spy episodes. So it's just interesting how I would just be glad that you used any portion of my idea, even if you changed how the story ended or began or the dialogue. It'd be like, hey, my name's on it. I get a residual, and I'm glad you listened to at least a quarter of it. It's just, I think a lot of people, I don't know how much of it is not having a thick skin versus just being happy to be a part of it versus it's good, but I disown it. It's just like,
yeah, always depends on the person. Yeah. Who was it? I think what Harold Ramis and Brian Doyle Murray, or no, it was Caddyshack 2. It was Harold Ramis wanted his name off of Caddyshack 2.
Yeah.
He couldn't even achieve the Writers Guild to take his name off it. But,
absolutely.
It happens. Yeah.
And that's how producers, same deal. Even if you had nothing to do with the final product, if you were involved at some stage of the development process by guild rules, you have to be credited. And so I've been listening to the 50 miles per hour, which everyone should listen to. It talks about the making of the blockbuster movie Speed. But you will, as a film buff, you'll love because it talks even more about rear projection, casting. The director, was good at getting everyone to trust him. And there's a movie where they paid to have it rewritten. The rewrite was so bad, they're like, let's hire back the guy who sold us the script in the first place. So double payday for him. And the director had to calm down all the bus passenger actors. He's like, okay, we've taken out all the soapy crap that doesn't work. That's just awful. But you are not featured extras. You're still going to have a lot of free reign to ad lib, and I'm still going to have your close-ups and everything. And again, people trusted each other. People had a good attitude, and the safety was pretty good considering this was before, insurance rocketed and other stuff that couldn't be done without computer effects. So it's a total worthwhile thing. But the reason I brought it up is it's funny hearing Mark Gordon say I had nothing to do with the awful sequel, even though I'm one of the first producer names that comes up, because the director made sure to fire him and then kind of let his ego take over. So it's just funny how, yeah,
even if people sometimes have accomplished, that based on characters created by, but sometimes it still has their name on it as producer, executive producer, and sometimes they're thrilled about it. Sometimes they have a good sense of humor about it, or you get directed by Alan Smithee.
Yeah, the Alan Smithee ones are always a treat, especially isn't it funny? The reason that got found out was by a comedy that happened to be called, an Alan Smithee film. So it's just so funny how I actually did a special on it recently. It's just so funny how good movie or bad, just when someone just gets so personal, that was like the only compromise. I want my name taken off of it. And unfortunately, audiences don't understand that. They still, Madam Web came out recently and people are like, oh, those people intended to make a bad movie. I'm like, no, the actors all got tricked into it by dishonest PR and agents. And the director was actually pretty accomplished in both movies and TV, but she was like, I don't care about my future career, but I'm going to be honest. The producers took it away from us. And fuck, good on you. Instead of just doing a press release and then coming out with it 10 years later, just say, my career actually is on the line now. So I'm going to just say, I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like hearing interviews of Joel Schumacher when it came to the Batman movie.
He was a pro. He took credit for it. He's like, I should have fought back. I should have stopped trying to make a toy commercial. I should have made it less campy. I was trying to please too many people, and I take responsibility. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, his famous quote was, "They're called comic books, not tragic books." And I'm like, no, Joel, that isn't how it works. But and then you think also of the Fantastic Four movie from the 90s.
Yeah,
Roger Corman. When he did that movie, he completely said, it was like, take my name off that movie. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Well, you think of all the problems that happened recently with the movie Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Olivia Wilde, yeah, it's like a Twilight Zone episode, and you're just like, why did this get so... And again, negative release can kill a movie now. And so that's just it. Like, people are talking about maybe we should go and make fun of this movie, or maybe we shouldn't see it just because an actress and an actress turned director are just at each other.
And then your boyfriends show up and your exes show up and they cause problems on set. So yeah, it's a train wreck.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah, well, that's what there are little movies that could. So at the top of my head, there's Star Wars, which could have went in a completely different direction
without that editor.
Plagued it, without the editor, and Wayne's World. One of the most iconic comedies of the 90s had umpteen problems on the set. So,
Absolutely.
and they didn't think it was going to be a hit at all, and and then it premieres, and they had magic, like unbelievable. So sometimes it's not always, you can't always use the excuse, well, this film was so plagued with problems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it only goes so far. Yeah, exactly. It always goes so far to use.
Look
that
at The
excuse.
Exorcist.
Yes. Some of the places they were filming, they were having some people try to religiously, prosecute them or say, you can't film here. Yeah.
And all the crazy stuff that went on set, yet a Class A movie.
Yeah, and rest in peace, William Friedkin. But I love all those stories how he would slap you to knock some sense in you, but it's just like, yeah, that couldn't happen now. Everyone would be like, assault charge. It's really frustrating to have to explain to people when they look at their Blu-ray and they're like, oh, how did so and so not notice, the unconvincing extras in Gladiator or the, you know, all these desert scenes and there's a plane in the horizon. And I'm like, guys, they had different viewfinders. Most of the time, they didn't know what they had until they went into the editing room. It wasn't until like around the 2000s where it seemed like they were able to fix some stuff, And
but also, if I may, if you're nitpicking with those kind of things, you're not even watching the movie.
Bingo. And most of the time, those are the same crowd. They're looking at their IMDb app on their phone. And it's just like, watch the movie, turn out the lights, have fun. And Star Trek, I will say, like, especially with the movies, you gotta watch them, in
it was like the haters on Florence Pugh's breasts in Oppenheimer. If you're criticizing Florence Pugh's breasts, you're not watching Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I see. I would see people do that in all kinds of movies. They would try to see which people had like plastic surgery, or they would get wind of, two actors who, usually, unfortunately, what happens is the person playing the villain is actually a pretty chill individual, and it's just a stereotype, but it's often the case. And the leads, who are very convincing on screen, hate working with each other, hate each other's guts. And so it's so funny how some people, I would see them do it with movies like Glory or various dance movies, and it's just so funny. And you're like, okay, that's a scene where they're clearly struggling to have to play opposite of each other. And most of the time, it just goes back to ego. Like, they want to be the bigger person in the scene instead of play off of each other. It can work either way, like if the person's a method actor, okay, he's talking to you in character and you just got to stage the scene and address them in character. And other times, they're making a suggestion, and if they give you a duly note, is like, okay, I'm just going to do what I do, bring my brand. And fortunately, you don't really see that as much with the movies. You do hear how Nicholas Meyer would get all kinds of. We talked about all the different close-ups, and it is funny how Meyer said he had to do that the most on Part 6, where he's like, okay, give me a moment. We're getting to your coverage. We're getting to your close-up. You're going to get your moment in the sun. I promise you won't be in the background. Going to give you something for your reel. And so he already had to do that a bunch in Part 2, give Shatner his close-ups. But by Part 6, he had to make sure, okay, Scotty, your coverage, action. Sulu, here's your moment to shine. Action.
And it's the last time we're all going to see you. So.
It's your swan song. Yeah.
Yes, as he should have. Yes.
Yeah. This has been a delight, guys. I think we've summed up pretty much the moments that just stay with us. And ironically, that's actually going to be the promo image, as a view from the bridge. It is interesting, too, how that kind of opened up the format. Like, I can't think of any space opera that doesn't have like a viewfinder, where they to communicate now. Like, that's kind of the next best thing. And now it's a no-brainer. Now everyone's got like an iPad or a futuristic kind of way, outside camera that allows the ship occupants to see what they're facing. And I don't know how I applaud anyone who can bring their own voice to an ever-changing subgenre now. If anyone hasn't seen it, I totally recommend The Expanse. That really did change up how we view the science, how we view people even living in a war-torn galaxy.
Sci-fi, yeah. When it comes to sci-fi, it reinvents itself all the time. I think with the different people, like Cameron revolutionized it, and Ridley Scott revolutionized it. Of course, George Lucas revolutionized it. And then you got someone new, always coming in. I mean, there's so many to name that comes in and revolutionizes sci-fi.
Oh, absolutely. So Undiscovered podcast, since it's coming out, I want to say after summer. What do you guys got coming up next that you'd like to promote?
Well, a lot of show. Well, first of all, check out our back catalog.
Undiscovered podcast. Yeah.
Star Trek, the Undiscovered podcast. We've got about 30 episodes. So we're in season 2. Season 2 ends in June. So we currently have some great shows coming up. We have our review of Star Trek: The Motion Picture is coming up as our penultimate show. And I don't always like to name the shows that are coming up in case like a show that's about to come up
in case there's an interruption
exactly might be postponed. But we've got the science of technology of Star Trek. We've got a review of The Inner Light with Kyle and Nick here on this panel, especially because they've never seen that classic episode before. That's what we do. That's one of the main
you
things
guys
that
had
we do.
Some great ones, including your top characters ranked, as well as your a board tribute. That was pretty cool. And yeah.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, just check out the back catalog, guys. And of course, when the season does end, just as we did last season, we do bonus shows in between the season. So we don't leave you high and dry. Yes.
It's on Spotify for anyone who wants to listen. Please check it out. Caleb, again, you're busy on YouTube. What have you been really digging about your interactive breakdowns?
I'm just a connoisseur and a lover of film. I love watching movies. I love learning about movies. Hence the name. Check me out on YouTube. Caleb Watches Movies, where I'm approaching, and I'm just shocked that I've done this because I just started this back in 2017, just on a whim to see if it would be a great creative outlet for me. It turns out, for me personally, it is. We're approaching my 1000th movie review that I'll probably be hitting by the end of this year. I do about 3 a week.
You're really good at mixing in a recent release with a cult movie.
A recent release, and then I hit the randomizer of any DVD or Blu-ray that I own in my library. So it's actually a lot of fun getting to rewatch movies on my shelf because I can't think of them off the top of my head. But if I put them all in a random generator and I just hit go, I get a random one popping up like, oh, that's the movie I'm watching tonight. I did do a watch along of Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan.
You're very camera friendly. Like you will always just be very animated with your hands. So.
Oh, thank you so much. The camera loves me, I guess. But yeah, I did a watch along of Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan.
I apply.
But yeah, one of my favorite watch alongs is Wrath of Khan. If any of you do want to check it out on YouTube, if you want to see a grown man cry for 5 minutes at the end. I wasn't expecting it to hit me that hard, but it had been several years since I saw it. I'm like, oh God, this still works. Right. Oh, this is still beautiful. Yeah, please check me out. And if you like what you see, please hit subscribe. We're approaching 4,000 subscribers, which for someone that doesn't advertise their channel at all, I'm very happy with. And I'm very proud of.
Hey, hell of a time.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this was a good way to start it off, guys, because, not everyone's up to talking about moments. They want to just, can we do mini reviews? I'm like, hey, this is more free form. What's a highlight? Like, why did you, if someone were to ask you, what did you like about it most? That's kind of what it is, really. It's like you're summing up why it was worth your 2.5 hours,
If I may, Cam, I also have a YouTube at Greg Vorob. That's GregVorob, and you can check out a lot of the All Things Random projects, which was my production company that I did with my buddy Dan Conrad. And there's about 99.9% of the things we did is up there. So check that out.
Sweet.
I guess, and I will piggyback off Greg's plugs there. When it comes to myself, when I'm not the caretaker, to use a Doctor Who reference on Star Trek: The Undiscovered podcast.
It's a Star Trek reference too, Nick. It's a Star Trek reference too.
I mean,
it's to me it's a Doctor Who reference. I'm sorry, but to me it's a Doctor Who reference.
To be fair, Star Trek stole the Q collective from you guys, so it's all good.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, so when I'm not, the caretaker from Doctor Who, if you will, when it comes to Star Trek, speaking of movies, myself and those two lovely ladies who answer the names of Zan Sprouse and Rachel Friend, we can be found on Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where we have reviewed all the best picture winners in movies in chronological order. And now we're all caught up. And as we wait for the 97th best picture to be revealed, we are reviewing movies of our choice. And we're also having previous guest co-hosts come on and bring a movie to the Gold Standard Theater for us to review. So we've got that going on. And also, if you're fans of those superhero movies, as we have mentioned them somewhat on this podcast, I also co-host Happiness in Darkness, the superhero movie podcast. Myself and Keith Bliss review any and every superhero movie under the sun. I have a great time doing that. And actually, speaking of May, we're going to be doing we had decided to do something crazy in the month of May, where we will be doing reviewing live action video game adapted movies, because at the end of the day, they are heroes too, and we are going to be revisiting Super Mario Brothers from the 90s. So that's going to be fun. And last but certainly not least, I also want to send a shout out to the Fandom Zone podcast, where myself and Charles Skaggs review superhero TV shows, and we're currently reviewing Dead Boy Detectives and having a great time doing that.
Oh wow! So there's no shortage.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in too, if you don't mind. Just to plug myself. Just find me all over the place on all the socials at Bain's Film Reviews. You can find me at my website, Bain's Film Reviews, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun places. Bunch of written reviews, and would love for you guys to check them out.
Please send me the link. I'll venture out. Delightful time. Seriously, really just the point. Time to beam up.
Thanks so much.
Anytime, my guy. Anytime.
Thank you very much, Cam. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You know it.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up